Mota.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast by Cruel Commons. I'm Dom, I'm the creative director here at Cruel, and beside me I have my co-host, the wonderful Julia Cherry.
Hello, how are we today?
I'm doing okay, how about you?
Pretty good, just happy we're not in meetings, to be honest.
Yeah, the clients aren't too happy with us today, but, taking a little bit of time to focus on ourselves, and we'll catch them tomorrow. Yeah.
Super excited to be here. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, I think that it's been a really busy period for Cruel in the last little bit.
Sure.
You know, we've met a lot of really cool people, done a lot of really interesting things,
Mm-hmm.
really fun projects. I think we wanted to kind of take a second to kind of take a step back and really focus on ourselves and talk a little bit about us and about our community.
Yeah.
The idea behind the podcast, really focusing on three main points, which are arts, advertising, and culture. So those will be our three focus points, and we're gonna have guests on here ranging from artists to more, corporate marketing people, to start a conversation about around creative, around the things that they love, and how they interact with us over here at Cruel.
Yeah. Whose great idea was this to just get you babbling on the internet?
I'm definitely looking forward to my grandchildren being able to look this up online, and maybe I'll premiere it for them just to get ahead
The
of it.
mini Lisis.
Yeah. The mini Lisis down the road. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But for this first episode, we will have guests on in the future, maybe guests from outside of this room. But today we've got two very special guests.
Very special.
Very special.
I was not paid to say that.
Yeah, they're not coercing us. There's no one behind the camera doing anything. Let's why don't we bring introduce our guests. Our two co-founders here at Cruel. Two of my best friends, the lovely Karl Bechmann and Schuyler Mota. Welcome.
Welcome to the couch.
Hey there.
Welcome to the couch. Welcome
Thank
back
you.
to the office
Thank you.
that you spend every day in. Yeah, welcome.
I love it here.
As guests in your
it's
own
great
home.
to be here.
How are things?
Things are great. I'm honestly super excited to kind of be here, talk a bit about Cruel, and I think this podcast has been something we've been talking about, for a long time. I'm super just pumped to kind of get it off the ground.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't anxious at all when you guys asked me to do it.
There's no nerves, no anxiety involved at all here.
None.
Absolutely.
I feel like we're just really excited because, I know I get this question all the time. Like, what is Cruel? What do you do? Like, what the hell do you guys do over there? It's kind of hard to answer because, there's a lot. So I feel like today we're going to really focus on that.
Yeah, we'll dig in. We'll try to answer that mystical question. But first, why don't we get to know Karl and Skye a little bit? Karl, give us the rundown. Who is Karl pre-Cruel? Give us the story.
Give us the notes. My name's Karl. You may have gathered already. It's been about nine years, almost coming up to 10 years, I guess, with Cruel. But I guess a little bit of a background on myself. Downtown Toronto guy. Kind of grew up originally in
city guy, city boy.
I grew up in Parkdale to kind of start in the very early part of my life, but really spent most of my kind of teen years in the Bloor-Ossington area. Kind of went to high school in Toronto. My mom's like a huge jazz fan, so growing up, I played a lot of piano, and I think that for a long time, in kind of like my youth and into high school, I thought I was going to be sort of like a jazz musician, I guess, which is probably not what a lot of co-founders at marketing agencies say.
You still are a jazz musician now.
Yeah, exactly. I think in high school I went to Oakwood Collegiate in downtown Toronto. It was a great school, public school. Just a lot going on there. I had the music thing going on at the same time. I always loved school and academics, and math specifically was always a big interest. Ended up choosing to go to business school over the music path, which was not the most popular decision with particularly my mom. But
sellout. She didn't want to see you become a corporate sellout. Come on.
I guess not, and here we are. No, I went to McGill. I studied finance and math. I did my BCom there. I thought I was going to be a kind of suit and tie, I think, for a couple of years. I remember at my peak corporate apex, I think I owned like 7 suits or something like that.
Too many suits.
It's a lot of suits.
I think right now I own 1, and I just kind of have that for weddings pretty much.
It's a good suit, though.
Yeah.
It's a good one suit.
Yeah, but that's kind of I guess my story in a nutshell.
Schuyler.
Schuyler, what about you?
World Before Carl. I can't even remember what that's like.
Me neither.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't get away from each other now. So yeah.
That's right. Well, yeah, I actually also grew up downtown, kind of that Spadina College area. The Portuguese community. My both my parents, kind of Portuguese immigrants, came over, and both entrepreneurs, right? So they were kind of struggling to do their thing, and I spent a lot of time in growing up in Portugal with my grandparents alone. So I was always like independent from a pretty young age. And hockey was my big thing. It was always about sports, specifically hockey. The immigrant family, it was like, he's going to be an NHL hockey player. He's going to be a lawyer. There was two options.
maybe
like,
both.
There's no other
yeah.
option.
Oh, no, both was thrown around. Ken Dryden, he did both. I'm like, you compare me to Ken Dryden? I'm like 12. But anyways, kind of like growing up, I was doing the hockey thing. And then in the OHL draft year, I kind of quit playing hockey. And I went to university. I went to U of T. There was no option to leave the city. No chance.
Mom wasn't having that.
knowing your parents.
No.
Well, the
Yeah.
application thing, you actually have to pick 3. And I was like, I don't want to put 2 others. Like, you have to. I was like, I don't want to.
My mom isn't letting me.
I
Cross
can't do
it
that. But I went to U of T, and then I took the full course load there. And, I was going to do the history, poli-sci, like going to law school. And, a friend asked me to go take him to a tryout for a juvie hockey team. I hadn't played a couple years. I went, ended up playing junior. At the same time, I was really involved at U of T with kind of the student body and like kind of throwing events, Utica, SMICSU, the St. Mike's Student Union. And that was at the same time, I also realized that I did not want to read 1,000 pages a week of kind of history textbooks. So I kind of made the switch over, went back to Blythe, got some credits, like took the calculus course, took the economics course, got into like the Rotman program. That was like the big thing. And also got some scholarships offered to me in my last year at hockey. And then I quit hockey and school at the same time when I was 21 years old
Nice.
to
Popular
start
choice
Cruel.
with the
I'm
family,
sure
I'm
your
sure.
parents absolutely love that.
Yeah, exactly. Like we went from, NHL hockey player or lawyer to club promoter. Loved it.
All right, so I think let's jump into the story a little bit.
Yeah,
about
I
Cruel. I
mean-
think like that's a good like segue into
Indeed it is.
why we're here today.
Mhm.
But yeah, like let's get down to it. Can you kind of explain just like elevator pitch what is Cruel?
Yeah.
What is Cruel? Absolutely. I think I can do a good
You
job.
got this one?
Cruel
You got this.
is a marketing agency. We do 3 things. We do branding, we do content, and we do experiential marketing. Those things overlap a lot. We work in the CPG space a lot. We also work in music, fashion, sports, cannabis as well. But I think, a lot of people ask me that question still, even people like I know, what is Cruel? What is Cruel? And I mean, for me, I always kind of found it was like funny because like, we're a marketing agency. It's pretty straightforward, right? But I think what people mean by that is like, there's this like other like thing happening here.
We don't
right?
look like marketing corporate silos.
We don't, right? I don't think we speak like marketing agency people. I don't think we act like it. Cruel isn't really a traditional name. I don't think there's really much about what we do that's traditional. I think the deeper answer to what is Cruel, I guess, to shed some light on that. I think it's a group of young people. It's a collective. It's a bunch of shared ambitions, and I think ultimately what we're trying to do is build something a little bit more than just an agency. We're trying to build a space, for all of us to kind of learn and grow. And I think with that comes a lot of experimenting and things like that. And I think that what we've built here and like kind of the energy in the room, I think again, it is unique in my mind, and I think for that reason, I mean that's what Cruel is to me.
I feel like that's how you sold both of us.
I
coming
mean,
here.
yeah, that was what I always originally like loved about the essence of Cruel was that like it was a group of people just looking to like do something that they love with people that they enjoy doing it with. And so let's dig into like the origin then. Let's dig into like the start of Cruel and kind of where it all began, because I know most people today probably associate Cruel with Toronto, but like obviously our origins were actually in Quebec. So like why don't we talk a bit about the early Montreal days?
Yeah, good time. I went to school in McGill. I was kind of like through a really good friend's older brother. They kind of ran this like promotions company out at McGill, and I remember in grade 12, I was kind of sort of petitioned or like drafted, if you will, because I was going to go to McGill to kind of like work in this like kind of events kind of business. I was there to study finance, obviously, but For me, I was paying my own way. It was a great way to make a bit of cash, meet people, and like honestly, I just thought it was cool. So, I remember in first year at McGill, I got kind of connected with the St. Woods group, which is, they're doing incredible right now still. But I remember I was like literally paid hourly to hand out flyers at the Milton Gates and to kind of sell
Flyers.
tickets, literal printed flyers. Can you believe that?
I can't believe that. I don't think I ever experienced that.
So
Free before 11, 2 rooms, 2 sounds.
That's right. That was the whole thing. We used to kind of have a group of us and we just get together and kind of promote these parties through like word of mouth and all that. And, I think what happened, which was really interesting, and that was 2008 when I was in first year. And by the time that, 2009, 2010 came around, like it literally transitioned like in terms of the landscape with that kind of stuff from flyers, text messages, literally phone calling people to to like Facebook events, right? And this idea of like this like digital thing kind of coming in. So, in terms of like how Cruel kind of started, like there was just a bunch of us. We're so young. We were just like all like interested in events and that kind of stuff. But I think this idea of this like social media thing, really kind of was overlaid on it. And I think like for me, I just felt it was so fascinating, right? This idea of this like virtual and like in real life world kind of like meshing, like before there was like YouTube, right? And that would like exist on YouTube. And then there's like events. But, I think the social media thing really was super compelling. So, how Cruel really started was it was just a group of people. We really just found out little weird ways to kind of grow these communities through like online content, tactics and kind of building this Cruel brand while still kind of doing the in real life stuff and building a real life community that existed both in the real world and online.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of like sort of the crux of how it all began.
Yeah.
Do you have an office?
Yeah. I think the first iteration, we kind of like, started like building this like, model would be a good way to refer to it now, but of, we'd have these Facebook events, we'd do some like party photography, which was like huge at that time on Facebook. And we kind of like bring people out. We do these like events, but it was just more than that. It was like this like, lifestyle brand, which sounds vague, but that was kind of it. I think at that time as kind of young people, we kind of saw like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is going well. And we started like expanding to these other kind of university markets and Toronto, like met Schuyler really, really soon after that initial seed was planted, I guess. But we kind of started expanding and I remember like, the group of us in Montreal were kind of looking at each other like, we're going to get like an office. And like everyone sort of like laughed about it. Right. It's like, why would we need an office? Right. And, it was just like really kind of like, we ended up being like, okay, we're trying to sort of make this seem like legitimate business. Right. And I think like one thing I always think about is like, that we were talking about at the time is like dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So yeah, we got this office space, which quite frankly may have been unnecessary, but
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it was like this 300 square foot like broom closet at like Park in Sherbrooke in Montreal, and it was like beside this yoga studio, which as you can imagine, not a great fit. But no, that was kind of that first like iteration. I remember like setting up these like kind of little Cruel teams to mirror what we had done in Montreal at different campuses, Queens and Western and Waterloo and Halifax and all these places. We had this like office. We'd jump on calls and be like, "Oh, we have this office," and like, "Oh, this must be legit," right? So that was kind of that. First,
jump on calls, yell at people.
Yeah, that was kind of
we're doing business here.
Yeah, we're doing real business.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It seems like
business.
hashtag business. It seems like that was kind of like one of the first instances where the business was like feeling a bit more like legitimate, a bit more like, yeah, we're actually becoming a business, even if we didn't have a registered business number. Like that was maybe the start, right?
Definitely not.
Definitely was the start. And I think at that time period, again, there wasn't really a clear model. There wasn't really a clear like revenue pathway. The whole thing was just about building this audience that existed in the real world and digitally at the same time, which again, now seems kind of obvious, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, it was like this like, wow. moment
Yeah, it was
for all
early
of us.
on in Facebook. Like I that's what I remember about the early iterations of Cruel was like that, that focus on the Facebook content, that focus on the photo albums and everything like that.
At this time, I legally was not allowed to be on Facebook. So I was like 15, I think.
Julia was definitely not allowed to be in club photo albums either
No.
at that time.
I may have been.
Julia was 7.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, she was 6 turning 7 at the time. So yeah.
Good maths. Good maths.
But so built in Montreal originally.
He's a creative director, not an accountant.
Yeah. But built in Montreal originally, and then you guys kind of like moved to Toronto, and that was when like you and Sky met.
Yeah. I can maybe riff on that a little bit. And I guess it was that summer I was talking about. kind of where I made that move, that shift away. Like I hadn't made it yet. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do this events. Right at the very beginning, I was doing all these parties, and someone I hit up the Hoxton and was like, I want to sell tickets to this show. So they gave me tickets. In one day, I sold 80 tickets. They're like, all right, next day you're gonna meet this guy. They put me on a blind date. So I go to some random guy's house on a Tuesday that I met like the week before. So he gave me some tickets, and Carl's there. And they're like, all right, you two are going to be our guys, and you guys are going to do this night at this new venue, the Hoxton. And that's going to be your thing, and we're going to give you a flat rate of $250 a night.
The infamous flat rate.
The infamous flat rate. And that's, then Karl mentioned that seeds had just kind of been planted, and we kind of got together, and this kind of concept of building something was something that I was immediately taken with as well. And that's kind of why I made that decision over the course of that summer. I think maybe we were a little bit standoffish at first together with each other, but
well, I mean, I think we both agree, Schuyler.
Wait a minute. Two club promoters in Toronto were standoffish against each other.
To be honest, we're not even club promoters really at this time, right? Like this is like we're just two dudes.
Yeah. Just two dudes.
And I mean, yeah, no, for sure. It's funny too, because I mean, I think we've been doing this almost like 10 years together, right, Schuyler?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I think that like we often joke and kind of not really joke about this kind of being a marriage. So like it's funny, like, oh, how did like you kind of meet your spouse, so to speak? It was this blind date thing. It was like so coincidental.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It was before dating apps, guys. But yeah, so like we met that summer, and we were doing this whole thing, and then Karl was like, yeah, like I'm going back to Montreal, want to do this. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this Toronto thing. We put together a launch party, the Cruelty launch party in August 2012. So actually coming up on 10 years of that, August 17th at the courthouse.
Nice.
And we kicked it off, and that was August, right? So then the next week was McGill, Frosh, so Karl's gone. And then I was here, and James and I, who had spent a lot of time around St. Mike's and U of T college there, started doing all the events together, right? Like James would be the photographer, I would do all the events at the Hoxton, slowly kind of worked our way up from that flat rate to, 250, 500, 10%, 20%, and kind of like built it. And like Karl said, it was just about, finding engaging stuff to put online, finding engaging things to brand associate with. How do we build the hype? How do we kind of just like growth hack and, engage people? Because like the more that you could build the community, the more people you bring up to the events, the more money you make, the more content you make, the more we could build the brand. And honestly, I was obsessed with it. Like when I kind of made the decision to jump in, and I said my parents were furious because they thought I was a club promoter, but I didn't. Like the promoting was just a means to an end, right? Like I didn't care about that.
Yeah.
It was just like weird. It's like the service industry. Like my family has a restaurant. The only job I ever had was working in the kitchen and working at the bar there. And in the service industry, it's just about taking care of people. You're not a celebrity, and that's the way it was with the promoting. And I think that that's a pitfall that a lot of people can fall into, is they think it's about you, but no, it's about everybody. It's about taking care of each person, making sure that they're having a good time, and building that community. And that it went really, really well. And I think that over that year, we took some big steps. We got an office. We launched a couple new ventures once we got some brand there. And that's when Karl kind of came back to Toronto full time. And that was like 2013. And that's
exactly
when we incorporated the business.
Absolutely. And just to, be clear on this, like, the initial idea was to build this like brand platform of Cruel and build this audience and kind of figure out different ways to kind of monetize that, and that was kind of, I think, our obsession was just, again, finding ways to just keep growing this kind of community, which is different from what we're doing now, obviously. But, again, going back to this, what is Cruel comment, right? Like, I think, again, from day one, it's always just it's always been about just building this space that we believed in, that we wanted to work in. And regardless of like the service offering may have changed, again, I think the essence of what we're doing is honestly quite similar. And, that's been a really, really fun adventure.
Okay, cool. So you said you had an office in Toronto at that point. We still had the office in Montreal.
Yeah.
So I guess, talk a little bit more about this sort of like Facebook and growth hacking and how we were using social media to kind of like push Cruel out.
Yeah, for sure. I can jump in on that. I mean, like, I think the whole thing, again, is like everything was Facebook dependent at that time, right?
Yeah.
So, we had these little university campuses kind of set up, and really like what we were doing at that time for this like growth hacking concept was like, we'd set up these little satellite kind of groups at all these different university campuses, against like Waterloo, London, Ontario, Western, Queens, like we had a bunch of them.
Halifax,
Hamilton, I think we were there for a bit too. So, we kind of like pitched these like sort of university kids on which we're like 2 years older than them, whatever. But on like, hey, like we're gonna come to the table with the relationships and networks we've built for booking artists, for DJs, for clubs and stuff like that to kind of get a foothold. But we also kind of had this like creative thing going on, right? Which again is a really interesting pathway and ladder to what we're doing currently.
100%.
So we came to the table with graphic design and like cool kind of like content pieces and things like that, and it was kind of this like weird like franchise model, I guess. And it was kind of been like, all right, listen, like you guys keep all the money and profits, like we're just interested in growing
In
this
the brand,
right? And that was kind of like this big like sort of growth hack, I think, at that time for us. So when we came back, we were having like a decent amount of success with kind of setting up these new little kind of pillars and stuff like that. And I think we kind of made the decision like, to get like an actual real office space, which looking back was obviously like funny, like how small that place was too. But with like real desks and like people who were like working there.
This is the King
like,
Street office, like the original King Street
That
office.
was a couple months sublease, and it was like literally like 200 square feet.
So
there was like a couple desks.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of like first like real office in my mind was like this Chinatown spot.
Yeah, the Chinatown space on
It was like
Spadina,
260 Spadina.
But before Chinatown, that was kind of when Cruel Travel started. No?
Oh, Cruel Travel. Let's go. Yeah, for sure.
It's a way back.
So I can kind of preface this, but I'd love Schuyler to jump in on some of the festival stuff. But like, with Cruel Travel, we had this idea where we could monetize by like moving these students and these community members from kind of place to place and kind of move them to events and particularly music festivals. So again, our first like, version 1 of developing like the business model for revenues at Cruel, right?
But you know what? It's all kind of connected because this is like where we started to really learn a lot about festivals, right? Like we loved festivals, and this was just like an idea to get into that space. It didn't work out, obviously. This is when we incorporated because you needed an incorporation to have, a travel agency. And just to be clear,
you need to register.
just to be clear,
kept being like travel.
there's something called Tico that we didn't know about. We knew about it, but we just couldn't get it because we couldn't get authorized as a travel agency. And also it turns out when you go to do a bank application for credit and you say that you're 222 3-year-olds running a travel agency, turns out they'll give you no money.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean the Cruel Travel thing, again was really cool because like it was when we did incorporate, in 2013 for the first time. We kind of had to do some like quote unquote business stuff, right?
Doing some models, like some projections.
Yeah, exactly. And Schuyler hit the nail on the head. And like in terms of like we just learned so much about networking, the festival space, how their models worked, like how the whole like live event scene was kind of like operating. And I mean, I remember that like really quickly laddered up to like this like really big moment, where we with the Electric Elements. I don't know if you want to talk about the first meeting with that group, but
yeah. So I think that's actually where the value of Cruel Travel was.
Yeah.
The value of Cruel Travel was kind of just like getting really in with the festivals. I think we did we did Digital Dreams, then we did Bird Music Festival with them, with the Live Nation team, and then we were doing all the Hawks and stuff, and EDM was popping off. We had all these crazy artists coming and playing for $1,000, like the Chainsmokers and
for $1,000.
Literally, I think Chainsmokers was $1,500.
What festival was this for?
So it's called Electric Elements. It was in Wasaga Beach. It ran for a few years. I think our first year we did 7,000 people. I think we can play the clip.
Right here. Yeah, no, for sure. And really quickly, obviously, let's keep moving. But so I mean, before we really had like the artist book, we had to launch this page. And like again, we're sitting there being like, what the hell are we gonna do?
We need a growth hack.
We need a growth hack, yeah. So we're sitting there and we're like, okay, what's like a contest has to be it? Because at the time you could like gate a Facebook page. So you have to like the page to like be entered in the contest. So like, okay, contesting, that seems really dope. So
stole that from Wavo.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we're sitting down like, what's a contest we could offer for people who really love music festivals? And we both looked at each other and we go, Coachella. And so like we send like some email, right? Like obviously get no response, right? We're like, we want to like offer like whatever, right? And so we're like, all right, like fuck it. Like we're just gonna like offer the package online anyways.
Unsanctioned Coachella promo.
Completely. And like our plan was to like, buy the tickets and do it, right? But like obviously we didn't have the cosign to use their brand, right?
Yeah.
So
IP. Yeah. Who would have known?
Who knew? Yeah.
You didn't.
So we launched this Facebook page saying like, oh, a crazy event in Wasaga Beach. Like you got to like the page to be entered in this Coachella contest. And we developed like immediate traction with it. There was like a few thousand likes and entrants like almost like overnight, I remember. And
people that loved festivals and loved the music and were engaged.
So, we get the cease and desist letter from Coachella.
They actually sent it. The lawyers
They-
came out.
You're a
Eh?
cease and
Pretty quick. Like
pretty quick.
I think within
Yes, they were
48
on it.
hours.
They're
on it. They're
You're
on
not
their
a real
shit.
company until you have at least one cease and
so
desist.
yeah, so
It
so we-
wasn't our first or wasn't our last.
yeah, exactly. So you know, like we kind of launched it. We obviously took down the package and everything like that, like for sure. And I think we did like end up like getting some kind of package to one of the entrants. So like it wasn't like that sketchy, but you know, but like the damage had already been kind of done, right? Like we'd already launched the festival and had that few thousand first like likes and traction, right? So and then again we got to layer on sort of the artists after that. So I mean that was a
Yeah.
pretty
That's
funny
awesome.
And that
moment,
was
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it's like, yeah, a lot of people would think that's a dream now. Like, oh, running my own festival.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah, for
no, that's
sure.
pretty dope. I love that. Well, yeah, so Chinatown office, you guys, you know, you're beside a bunch of doctors' offices. You're kind of growing the business. You're doing the cruel travel piece. You're starting the festival piece as well. So yeah, how did that transition happen from Chinatown to go onto the John Street office and kind of what was happening during that period?
Yeah, John Street was great. Like, I mean, the Chinatown office was again great for where we were at in the business. And just like one quick note for any like young entrepreneurs out there, my one piece of advice for you is do not get a ping pong table for your first office. Just don't do it. Just
No
don't do
word.
it.
Why is that why we
Yeah.
don't have a
Just
ping pong
don't do it.
table?
Yeah,
Chris?
just
We'll
don't
never
do
have a
it.
ping pong
Yeah,
table.
we're
I was
never
always
gonna have a
wondering
ping pong
that.
table. But in any case,
But I'll crush any of you in ping pong.
All right,
Like,
actually,
Oh, here we go.
but no, the John Street office was really cool. Like it was kind of like a personal connection of ours, and he was kind of like trying to like get this like kind of co-working kind of space up, but it was like with this like really dope like photo studio event space in it. And it was kind of this like, if I could describe it, his vision was like this like hipster like incubator almost.
It
where-
had like a very hipster incubator vibe.
It was like all these like businesses that were kind of supposed to be these like young people that could kind of vibe with one another. So we ended up getting like the third floor of this building on John Street, and it was
John
super
and
cool.
Adelaide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John and Adelaide, and
Like in the heart of the city.
Yeah.
I remember
Like
walking
2,000
in there
square
once.
feet. Like no one should.
And
have
it
given
had
that
like a
to
bunch
us.
of different rooms
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Like it was
yeah.
a really interesting
big space, really
I
big
remember
space.
walking in there with my buddy Misha Malalu, who like was the one who initially
yeah,
introduced me
for
to you
sure.
guys. And just so walking in him and I ready to like use the photo studio, and
Yeah.
then like walked in with our cameras, and then like you guys, the Loud Luxury guys,
Mhm.
Joe
Yeah,
Cornfield, like the
for sure.
and James as well, all sitting around the table looking up at us like, why the hell are you guys here? And we're like, can we use your photo studio?
Sorry, I mean the John Street thing, like the cruel travel thing, kind of fizzled out because, like, for
It
a
wasn't
lot
the
of different
point,
reasons,
right? Like-
it wasn't the point, right? And I think that the events business that we were running was really growing, and I remember like this next kind of iteration of the same narrative, right? Like, hey, we have this really incredible, vibrant young person audience, and like how the fuck are we gonna make money with this, right? So I think the next version of the big kind of project of that John Street space was a project called Cruel Buzz.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's
which
go.
was based
Let's
off kind
go.
of that BuzzFeed localized model. So we had all these little university like nodes kind of like popped up all over the place, and we're kind of like, we're gonna make localized university specific content, photo content, written content, blog content, that kind of stuff.
The birth of Dom's writing career.
That's right. Which that was Dom's entrance point into Cruel. But so that was kind of the thing. It was sort of similar to Cruel Travel insofar as like, hey, we're gonna kind of try to build this thing over top of the work we had done on this audience, this community.
You got to let me tell the story.
Okay,
you got to
tell
let me
the
tell the
story,
story.
tell
All
the
right.
story, yeah.
So yeah, like all the different Cruel Buzz writers at the time were all from different universities. At that time, I was living with Eamon McConnell
Yeah.
and Chris Szynski,
Yeah.
and as well as Hugh Parker. We're all kind of like in the mix promoting for you guys at the
Yeah.
time at Queens. And they were like, hey, you should try to
Fluid
like write
nightclub.
these articles. Yeah. And so I wrote a few like kind of lame articles initially. I wasn't like too happy with them. And then I had the idea to write one about how like the club that you guys were promoting, which was Fluid, was like a better place to go to than like its kind of rival across the street, which was
A
called The
cultural
Spot.
revolution.
Yeah, it was a cultural revolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wrote this article like about like 10 reasons why you should go to Fluid over The Spot. And then it just like I didn't expect anything of it. Like I was kind of writing these articles being like, yeah, it's a good portfolio piece. But so
You're not getting paid. Not
It's
getting
definitely
paid.
Is
not
it in your
getting paid.
portfolio still?
It should be. So yeah, it went viral, and then I get this like note from one of my friends being like, one of the bartenders from The Spot reposted it and just got fired.
Dom,
Dom, just ruining dreams out
I'm a
here. You know?
homewrecker apparently.
Absolutely.
And then after
I don't
that,
think that's what that means, but
Yeah.
anyways.
After that, I got a few not so positive messages from some of the management team over at the spot. But I think it showed like kind of at the time, the effectiveness of Buzz because it was these like really local, very niche writers that were like writing on things that were relevant to students in those
From what I heard,
areas.
Fluid popped off that week.
It did
so-
pop off. It was all only because of me.
It's just
all
because of Dom, not
Yeah,
because Loud
solely.
Luxury and Adventure Club and Sean Frank were playing those
No,
three back
It was
all
to
about
Dom
back.
luxury,
For
yeah.
sure. But yes, I mean, Cruel Buzz is really cool because I mean, like we had some success with it from a metric standpoint. Like I remember when we launched it, like we kind of did like the plan and whatever, and we were really trying to build this proof of concept basically first. So we put this together, we sourced the writers, whatever, and I remember we got like 1.1 like million unique consumers readers.
3 million clicks.
Really
that.
within the first 2
Had
or
that
3
screenshot
months,
somewhere.
and because it was all localized, these were all like Canadian young people.
It
which
was
is like
authentic,
a
like
huge,
genuine,
massiveness.
Yeah.
But I think for us, when we kind of really got into it, we kind of pulled off the proof of concept, but at that point we were developing a little bit more business acumen, and we kind of like mapped out the business model just like a little bit more.
A little bit more.
And we kind of mapped
Business
it out
acumen.
and we really looked into it and how much we'd
Or
have
like
to scale
24.
this and as a content business. And I think we just decided that the investment was just going to be too great for kind of like where we were at as people, as young people, as people with not a lot of resources.
But you didn't want to compete with like the media giants of the world, like
exactly. So listen, we scrapped that project, and I remember like just to segue into kind of the next chapter here a little bit, like. It was really cool because like we ended up actually like moving into like the next office with Chuck as he started Narcity in
my
Toronto.
God.
Shout out Chuck. Chuck
Yeah.
also gave me my first like real graphic design contract. So thank you, Chuck.
Which leads us to Liberty.
The Liberty Street office.
Liberty
Yeah,
Hill.
because I think it makes sense. Like you guys you can see the growth at John Street. Meeting Chuck and then moving into the Liberty office. So let's dive into Liberty. That
Let's
was
go.
my second home for many years. And I think
My
Julia's
first
as well.
Dom used to sleep.
Julia's first job.
No, for sure. No,
I could
John
sleep there.
Street was dope. Like it was such a fun time. Like I mean, at that point we were like Scott and I 25-ish, like something like that. And
I'm just turning 24, 25,
I remember
25.
like we really kind of started getting dialed on this kind of notion of this like agency services thing. Very organically at first, like. We just did so much to get the name out there and to popularize the Cruel name and to just get out there and meet people. And I remember people just kind of like started like hitting us up a little bit, being like, "Oh, can you like make like a $1,000 video for us?" And just like random stuff like that. And we were kind of like thinking to ourselves like, "All right, like this is a pretty good business model. People just give us cash to do stuff.
Doing the
It's
stuff
awesome."
you were
opposed to us
already
putting
doing for yourselves.
As
but for
opposed to
them.
us putting up all of our money
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
just praying that something
Wait,
goes
other
right.
people will pay us to do the things we just do for ourselves right now?
So I mean, it kind of came full circle because like we got like a bit of a taste of this, and like honestly, the other thing about agency services beyond just like the opportunity for it, like I really even to this day like really believe that agency services is a hospitality first industry, and I
Same
think
thing.
with Schuyler and I both. I mean, that's kind of I think where we started.
Take
And
care of people.
it was cool. So I mean, we really leaned into this. We kind of like redid our whole business model in the Liberty Street office, and we were kind of looking at this, and we were still doing the event stream because we just needed to bankroll everything we were doing, and we were starting to like hire staff, like the lovely Dominic over here, and that was super cool. But I remember like one of the kind of connections we had in the Toronto nightlife industry. His name is Zark. Honestly, great guy. He's always been super great to us.
Shout out Zark Patah.
So I mean, he
Zark
had
and
this
Ralph,
like
legends.
hangover pill that he got involved with. I'm not sure if he founded
Oh.
it, but.
Over easy.
Over easy,
Over
right?
easy.
And,
Let's
I remember
go.
like he was like kind of like pushing it around the city, and Schuyler and I were like really gung ho on this like agency services thing, and like
Yeah.
I remember calling a
Yeah.
meeting.
We need to sample, like we need to figure out a way to like get
Yeah.
like a project
Yeah,
for like
yeah,
a
yeah.
portfolio piece. Like,
100%.
and like we're like in all these university cities and like we're doing all this content there and we're like, wonder what would be good to do.
Yeah.
Enter hangover pill.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember that meeting, and like we knew him well because like like just from around, but like I remember like Schuyler and I just sitting there.
We were
just-
doing like a few of their venues.
Yeah,
like we
yeah,
were managing
yeah,
a bunch of
for
their
sure.
nights too.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. So again, super good relationship. But like Schuyler and I were just pitching this guy, being like, "Listen, man, like
begging
we're
him to let us do
gonna
it.
get this product in the hands of millennials. Like
Millennial
it's gonna be
whispers.
right." And what we pitched him on was like, "All right, look, it's not gonna be a money making thing, but give us like whatever, a couple $1,000 to like cover
Give us
costs."
less money than you give us
Yeah.
for like a random night
Yeah,
on King
yeah.
Street
Yeah.
to go to like 3 cities and run a program for you and make a video about it.
And then we were like, kind of like, okay, like here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to a couple different university towns. I remember Queens and Western for sure.
And
There might have been a
Laurier. It
third.
wasn't Toronto.
Yeah, it wasn't Toronto. And we were like, well, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna hire some like cool brand ambassadors. We're gonna put them in shirts. We're gonna hand out these hangover pills. But the other thing we're gonna do, and this is extremely important, is we're gonna kind of like capture this content and turn it into this
yeah.
like content
Enter Mac.
piece.
We're gonna
The
film
first
it.
Mac
Yeah,
video.
We're gonna
yeah.
film it. And
Shout out
so
Mac.
yeah,
Love you, Mac.
shout out Mac.
That's when
So,
we found a wild Mac in at Western
Stanks.
filming Go Stanks.
Yeah, so like you know,
I don't
this-
like saying that actually.
Love
I don't feel good.
not ghost things, yeah. But so we kind of like and Zark agreed to it, and so we're like, okay, like fuck yeah, let's go. So you know, we kind of did this, and it went great. And again, like Mac, who's like you know, partner of the company today, you know, that was kind of our kind of first project with him as well. But we kind of did it, we executed it well. And that was really cool. I'll sidebar that for a moment. At the same time as that, we had booked this like A-track tour in a few different university markets, and we weren't really doing like bookings at that time.
Yeah, we
but-
did a bunch of university tours,
Yeah.
Chicken Smokers,
That
and
one
like
was
some
like
Bourgi,
yeah,
and like
a bit
all
of,
the
like,
EDM stuff.
Yeah, that was like a bit of like a cool like brand play as well. And you know, we had bills to pay. We had like an office. We had like a small staff group at that point. You know, we also had this like A-track financial pressure of paying this booking agent. So
You had to like actually get the get the tour paid for.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of stuff. It was like rent and everything, and it kind of just like. But we put up a bunch of the dollars that we had kind of had from the events into the upfront down payment, so we couldn't meet ends on everything else, and we were kind of just like bleeding in all ways, and we were just like, man, like we need like $10,000 or $15,000
about 10 or 15 grand, right? And this is like we're the third pillar of this kind of
which was
story.
like a crazy amount of money. So at
Oh,
the time,
yeah,
we're like,
yeah.
oh, where can we
Where are
possibly
we gonna
find
get
this?
So the third pillar of the story is that we were still doing this whole like university lifestyle campus kind of vibe,
Still
right?
doing all the
And-
events.
Yeah, and I remember we launched like all these like pretty legitimate St. Patrick's Days events at campuses, and we didn't do one in Waterloo. And I remember like our Waterloo team was like, oh man, like we really want to do an event. Like what can we do? What can you do? And like
And we didn't have the venue that we wanted to have. So we're like, all right, like, you know what? Like, we'll put it together. We give them some creative. It's just like a kegger at like a house. So he just like puts it up. And this is when all the virality was happening with the Facebook events. And just out of nowhere, 24 hours, like 15,000 people attending.
Oh my
it was
God.
insane.
That's
And
We're
like,
like, what are we going to do?
and
I
it was
think I
just, like-
remember seeing this on Facebook.
Yeah.
in
And
my
like we were
university
kind of like taken aback by it, right? But like again, that kind of shit was happening on Facebook a lot.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like I don't want to say it was random, but like
Yeah, there was a formula of the algorithm, and we were using it to our advantage
for
with our
sure.
Frosh Week events and some of our tours. Like that was the whole kind of thing. But we did not see this one coming.
Yeah,
this one
and-
was totally out of the blue.
Yeah, and so we're kind of doing this, and we'll get back to what this has to do with the agency services thing in a second. But so you know, we're like we have all these different St. Patrick's Days events across Canada going on, and Schuyler and I, you know, this one just pops off in Waterloo. So like we call up like a good friend of ours who has a venue there, Maxwell. It's like honestly like a really dope show venue for a university market, and we're like it fit about 800 people. And we're like, hey, we want to switch this viral like kegger event to like an actual venue, right?
Mhm.
So we did that. We got him to agree to it. And, you know, Schuyler and I were kind of like, okay, we're going to go drive up because this could be like the big one. And we're
Yeah.
kind of thinking like, oh yeah, it'll be popular.
Because
Like,
we did it so last minute, we're like, hey, we got to go there and be hands on with this
Yeah.
one because there were so many other events, but so many other teams managing all those events. So this one we needed to be there. You know, we like got a DJ really quick. I think it was actually the Loud Luxury guys, classic. Convinced him to come out, and we got a door person. We get there, and we put the thing for sale with pre-sale tickets, and we sold out in like one day.
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah.
So it's like $4,000. We're like, okay, well,
That doesn't work. We
that
need
doesn't
10.
work. that doesn't work, right? But we were like, okay, we're gonna open at 3 p.m. We're gonna do $10 cover at the door, and let's see if we can maybe get an extra couple hundred people,
the
make
room.
another couple, flip the room, get another few grand. And we get there, and there's just a lineup like around the building, and long story short, or short story long, we're driving back to Toronto with like $10,000 to $15,000 in cash, and
Nice.
Carl's singing "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." I think Atticus was actually in the back seat.
Yeah, I just hitting the high notes for sure. But I mean, like I remember that it was like this thing where we had this financial pressure, this A-track thing,
Yeah.
the other expenses, and like we literally needed about 12 grand, and like
we were spread so thin at that
Yeah.
time,
And
and
we-
we took
we-
way too much.
Yeah, and we got it, and like I remember like so vividly that fucking car ride home was just like seriously like one of the best moments of my entire life. Just like
Yeah.
in terms of like how much
Well,
of a saver
Just
it was.
like when you like lose like 200 pounds of weight off your shoulders, just
Yeah.
like
It's what you needed to keep it going
Yeah.
and like
Keep the
kind of
lights on.
enter
yeah.
big client.
Right.
after
So
that.
so you know, just to kind of get this back to like some actual like a story about building an agency. So like getting that cash was really what allowed us to do two things. We paid off the A-Track thing to the agents as best we could, but we also got the flexibility to do this no money over easy project, and we kind of did it. And I remember that content we posted on our Facebook page, and I remember like
roll the clip.
roll the clip exactly, and then like 2 weeks after that or a week after that, like one of our buddies like that we just didn't have a professional context with, but like hit me up on Facebook, and he was like, oh hey, like I saw the video, like that was super dope that you guys kind of did that. Do you guys do product sampling? And we're kind of like, yeah, for sure we do product sampling, right? And he's like, okay, cool, because I'm the assistant brand manager at Canada Dry Mott's, and the brand I'm working on is Snapple Spiked. We're launching an alcoholic Snapple product like for the first time, right? And we're kind of like, holy fucking shit, like this
Snapple.
is sick, right?
Yeah.
So
Canada Dry Mott's?
yeah, right.
What?
And it's like we fucking made it. So I mean, he tells us to just put something together, and I think the first iteration was like a 5,000 sample program about like canoeing up to like docks in Muskoka.
Yeah, it was like
basically.
the like private party
Yeah.
whole shit.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I remember like we kind of sent that over, and then like I remember like Ryan kind of got back to us. And he's like, honestly, everyone loved it, but like the thing is, like with the size of the business we're at, like we need this to be like 100,000 samples. And we also, I think it was a Wednesday, and like he was kind of like, we need this back by Friday.
Yeah,
And
I remember exactly where
Yeah.
I was sitting and where our desks were positioned, because Carl got that call from the person, and he just like gets off the phone and tells me, he goes like, I was like, okay. He's like, can we even do that? Looked at him. I was like, of course we can.
Yeah.
Like, of course we can. Like 100,000 samples on licensed properties with like a 2-day turnaround. Like, why not?
I remember that week because earlier in the week we were working on this small campaign, and then by the end of the week it was like this massive like
Yeah,
company
yeah, yeah.
changing.
And didn't you have to
campaign.
go to like something for Seizure Day?
So yeah, okay, yeah. So this is the whole thing. You know, the leadership team liked the proposal. They're like, we need to be 100,000 samples. We just said we could do it.
Mhm.
Obviously, like that was a bit of a stretch. And then the next day is National Caesar Day. It's the Thursday from Victoria Day long weekend.
Mhm.
So we go have like 4 Caesars really quickly, meet the whole leadership team. It's funny because I snuck outside to have a smoke and kind of get away because I was really anxious about being in there with all of them. I needed a break. And I'm in the alleyway beside it. Boom. CEO of Canada Dry Mott's rolls out, walks outside, puts a cigarette in his mouth, walks up to me. I light it, just starts grilling me. Who are you? Why do you think you can do this? Da 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 da. I blacked out. I just like woke up, and he's just like, "This is gonna be good for you." Takes my hand. Andy Bayfield, absolute legend,
Total
great
legend,
guy.
yeah.
Like did so much for us, and the whole team at Canada Dry Mott's. But yeah, that was that. Next week, we finished getting that proposal together. We called everyone we've ever worked with, all the venue owners,
Mhm.
festival owners, Embrace, festivals, concerts, and patios. We put together the program, and we went in there the next week and pitched it to the whole leadership team.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of like the start of the rest of
Yeah.
the story
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
and,
we
and,
That was a
and
big
yeah,
break.
just to kind of like give like a bit of a vision piece. I really, we don't have to get into everything else, but yeah, listen, I mean, once you get that first big client, right, like everything changes, like
Mhm.
everything
Yeah.
just changes.
Yeah.
And I think that like from that time period, like for a lot of reasons, everything had sort of coalesced onto this agency services model. We really leaned into that. We started having a lot of success with it, you know, and that was super cool. And I remember like really from that point on, about 2016, like we've really been on a very linear sort of trajectory with kind of building out that, same
Mhm.
thing as we've always been doing. It's just been experiential, aka event marketing, right? Second piece, branding, building the Cruel brand, right? But now we do that for other people. And then third piece, that content, which I
Put
don't
it
know
out
if you've
there,
heard
yeah.
all these stories,
Yeah.
it's kind of
It's the
been
same
And-
model.
Yeah,
the
and
same
we'll
thing,
talk-
right?
We'll
Yeah.
talk a lot more about that and everything in the next episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just looking
Yeah, it's a
forward
long
to the
one.
next ep because then we get to talk about 2017.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Where
talk
I
a little
enter,
bit about us.
so-
Yeah,
Oh,
the good part of the story.
But yeah, keep an eye out for
Yeah.
the next episodes and part 2 of this story.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today, and yeah, we're gonna have a couple more episodes coming up. We're
Yeah.
gonna finish our story here, catch up
Thank
to
you both.
2022.
It was like pulling teeth trying to get you two on this. Like, seriously?
Our
Yeah.
schedules are really, really full.
Slammed.
Super
Absolutely
full.
slammed, for
Yeah,
sure.
as if we
Definitely.
wanted to stay in the office for more time, right? Fuck.
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
Well,
we
yeah,
really
thanks
appreciate it.
everyone. And yeah, look out for the next episode.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you guys.
Peace out.